Story Chat with John Fornof, the art and passion of storytelling. Here's your host, Bryan Bullabush.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Story Chat, our little corner of the internet where we get to talk about storytelling and the art and passion of storytelling. Sorry it's been so long. This might not matter further down in the future, but we've been gone for like a month and a week. See, John got sick, then he went on vacation, then I went on vacation to visit family, and then I had work. So we're back. We're back today. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's good to be back. It's good to be here.
It has been a little too long, but
it's been long. Yes.
Let's dive right into it.
Awesome.
Today we're talking about conflict.
Yes.
The big conflict. The battle of the century.
Okay.
So you're talking to me earlier about conflict in storytelling. What do you mean by, define your terms? What do you mean by conflict?
Okay, cool. And before we dive in, I just want to tell you guys, we got a really nice note. You just read it to me, Brian. Appreciate that, from Jeremy in Colorado. And guys, we appreciate your comments, because that's how I get paid. We get paid in compliments. We're not making any money. We just get compliments. So and feel free if you've got a criticism of something, just any way, any kind of feedback like that, we appreciate, especially the nice things you say. And we appreciate that, Jeremy. Thank you very much. So conflict, let's talk about conflict. Funny story. Well, it's not that funny, and it's not that much of a story, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I was working with Adventures in Odyssey and loved it. And Paul McCusker was talking about, we would get these letters. And he'd say from these parents, and they're saying, why don't we have parents and kids that get along and they're all, having a good time and a wholesome family thing, which sounds wonderful, by the way. And we want to uphold that kind of stuff, but it would make a boring story if there's no conflict going on. There's nothing going on that everybody gets along and everything's wonderful. And that's the end of the show. And it's like, we need those shows are nice to maybe go to sleep to, but there's no conflict. What's conflict? Conflict is when you've got a protagonist going one direction, you've got an antagonist going another direction, and they collide. All right, and that's conflict. And the sharper that conflict, the more compelling your story. The more impossible the conflict. Now, remember a key question. If you're going to do script consulting or story consulting, I'll give you my secret. My secret weapon is the question I always ask, because this is the heart of your story. Is the question is what does your hero want more than anything else? All right, that's going to drive your story. That's going to drive the pacing of it. And every scene you write, look at that question, post it right there. All right. In fact, I was just working with my son on this. And it's the essence of conflict. This is all about conflict. And I said, here, four questions to just post up there, put on a Post-it, whatever you got to do to kind of put it in your peripheral vision as you're writing. One, what does your character want, your protagonist want more than anything else? It's driving this. That's what drives the story forward. And it's got to be something that's like high stakes. He's willing to bet the farm kind of thing. So something really high stakes. What is opposing him? That's your antagonistic force. What's stopping him from getting this? And how does he overcome that? That's 3 acts, by the way, act 1, 2, 3. And then the other question is, here's another one. Dave Arnold taught me this is, put a Post-it there about what is your story about? It could be a one word. It could be like, this is a story about courage. This is a story about faith. Or it could be a phrase. What does it take to really be human? Whatever it is. So what's going to happen is, as you have those 3 questions and that 4th question, and you have 4 questions there, as you post that, as you're writing, look at every scene as you're writing it. Look at that. Make sure it's answers. It's going to answer one of those questions, and it's going to address one of those. If it's not, you're going off a rabbit trail. So it kind of gives you some guidelines. Back to conflict. That's your protagonist meets your antagonist. How's you overcome it? That's your conflict. Here's a key point to making some great conflict. Is we talked about villains early on. The bigger your villain, the more intense your conflict, the more compelling your story.
What do you mean by bigger villain?
Bigger villain is a great question. Thank you. Bigger villain is it's the more impossible it is for your hero to overcome whatever he has to overcome, the more you're going to be like, how's he going to get out of this one? Or how's he going to do this? Or how's she going to do this? It's like, how are we going to get through this? And that conflict is what drives you. It's like, because you want to see how this can turn out, right?
Yeah, because I've seen villains as big as the Dark Lord Sauron.
Yeah.
Then you've got other like office villains, like the Devil Wears Prada. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but the villain is she's not really the villain, sort of, but it can be your office boss.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And those are two good examples. Sauron, especially. Although Sauron, does he wear Prada? I'm not sure. But as far as Sauron goes,
Sauron, what are you wearing? No, who are you wearing? Is
eyeball shoe. That's kind of a weird thing he does. Yeah, he kind of clumps around and with his eyeball.
I didn't know Sauron was into fashion.
Yeah, he is. Yes, definitely. Just one shoe though. It's So anyway, the bigger. Speaking of sidetrack, we talked about sidetrack. I needed my poster right beside me. So the bigger the villain, the more the villain is like for instance, Sauron's a great one against a little hobbit named Frodo, and Sam. It's like Sauron is the biggest, baddest kind of villain you can imagine. The more intense, the more evil, the more and it could be literally or figuratively bigger. The thing you want to look at is it looks impossible for our hero to win this one. And what that's going to do is going to draw you into the story, because you're like, the question is, how are they? I don't know how they're going to do this, how they get out of it, right? So what's cool about this, and we'll talk about this in our next podcast a little bit more, but as you're watching this story, you're watching this conflict, here's what it does inside you. You're dealing with your own conflicts in life. Every day we deal with conflicts. We deal with Saurons in our own life, right?
There's a lot of truth there.
Yeah. It informs what you are dealing with in your real life. And that's kind of the fun thing about movies or stories is as you're vicariously experiencing the hero, their journey, right? And what it does is so here's your problem you've got in real life over here, right? Now you go to a movie or you read a book or you listen to an audio drama. As you're listening to it, you're placing yourself inside the hero, right? You're kind of imagining, what would it be? How would I get out of this one? You kind of think through it, right? And as you do, that's the fourth question. I forgot to ask that. It deals with the theme. What does your hero really need inside here to overcome? And that's part of the theme, by the way. So as you're watching this, you're thinking about, man, how are they going to overcome this? You know what they really need? They've got an outer story, how they're going to do it and how they're going to do it mechanically. But what they need inside, they need courage. They need faith. They need hope. They need perseverance. They need something. And that something that you grab out of that story is something you can take back to your real world.
Yeah.
And inspire you with your own personal conflict. So it's a great tool. So that's the essence of conflict.
Conflict is at the same time the core of storytelling, but at the same time not. But it is, but it isn't, which is a unique balance, because if you have no conflict whatsoever, you don't have a story.
Right. It's not going anywhere. Oh, here's another thing too. You want your story to escalate as you go through. So you start with this conflict here, and then you ratchet it up, okay, and keep ratcheting up. If it's going this way and then it goes down, your story's gonna go like, it kind of loses the pacing. Three Little Pigs.
It's gonna lag.
Yeah, you start with straw, sticks, bricks, right? You kind of increase your obstacles. So make sure your obstacles are increasing. Another way to ramp up conflict is add a ticking clock. And that would be like, they've got to get this done by this time or the world will blow up, kind of thing. Something's ticking. All right.
Wasn't it Kubrick that talked about the ticking time? Or it might have been my film school. We talked about ticking time bombs. And
yes,
I had a professor say, stick a bomb in your scene.
That's right.
In any of the shorts that we've done. And it doesn't have to be a literal bomb, although my classmates did that just because it literally worked.
Red Riding Hood delivering a bomb to her grandma's house. I think that adds a whole other element to that story. It's like, wow, why is she delivering a bomb? And that's fascinating.
Here's an interesting question. Can you take conflict too far?
Wow. Well, can you take conflict too far? As you can tell, guys, we don't rehearse these questions. It's like Bryan just hits me like boom, and I'm going, let me think of something.
Gotta keep you on your toes, you know?
Oh yeah, I feel like a ballerina, man. Let's see. Is there case of going too far?
It might be a what's the word? A false question, maybe one that just doesn't.
Is there a false? I don't know if there was a false question. That's interesting.
Is there a false question?
I don't know.
It might not work.
I'm going to answer it anyway, even though it's false.
There you go.
Okay, if it would be false, is I think if it's gratuitous violence or gratuitous in some way, that would be maybe taking it too far. If it's too graphic, or whatever, that would be taken too far. And this is my opinion, because I don't think you need to. Hitchcock was great about that. Hitchcock came up with some of the greatest thrillers ever shown in movies, but he wasn't graphic about it. He didn't show like gore and guts and stuff like that films love to do today. But he showed just enough, just a hint, where your brain fills in the rest.
Yes.
And that is actually more terrifying.
Yeah, the imagination is more powerful than what you actually see.
Yes, exactly. So he showed just enough to go, whoa. So, by the way, going back to conflict, is one of the key elements I have found in story. I don't think I've heard people talk about this, but is a sense of mystery. The mystery, the questions, and the mystery is one of the mysteries is a couple ways to look at it. The big mystery is, how will this hero get out of this conflict? How will they do that? And by the way, as you're solving the conflict, you want to make a plausible escape. Got to set it up. You don't bring something out of nowhere and like, there's in Greek plays it called Deus Ex Machina or Machina.
That's literally what I was just thinking.
Yes,
I was going to mention
God,
that.
They called God as machine. So they had the Greeks when they did their plays back then. They come up with a conflict, and the big conflict, and no, the guy's in trouble or the woman's in trouble, and they'd have God come out of the kind of down on a pulley or whatever, kind of thing, and then God would step in the day and solve everything and obliterate the enemy, and there you go. That's a cheat. Don't do that.
Why is that a cheat?
Why is that a cheat? Because it came out of nowhere. It wasn't set up, and that's what you want. That's very important. If you set up God, quote unquote, earlier, and you made a plausible reason for him to come down on a pulley, that actually might work.
If you have a plausible reason for God to come down on a pulley, is not a sentence I thought I'd wake up and hear today.
Exactly. So it's important with your story. You set up things earlier so it makes sense later. I'll give you a semi-spoiler, but not really. In Rocketeer, the hero chews gum.
I've never seen Rocketeer. I've actually heard Disney's going to be making a remake of that. That's like
really
30s.
It was done. They did a remake of it in the 80s, 90s, whatever it was, and it was fun movie. And Paul McCusker showed it to us as an example of some payoffs. The guy chews gum. That's his thing, and later on, it plays into the big conflict. So you set it up, and then you pay it off. That's something you want to do to make it very plausible.
Now, I think you mentioned this earlier of you put sometimes when you don't know where a story is going, sometimes you'll put random little things in. You'll sprinkle it with, this character chews gum, or they drink tea, or they have a little twitch that you say you fit in later on in the story. How do you resolve that with the conflict? Because I seem to recall you mentioning that in the past. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
You're correct. And I want to make a confession here. I was busy monitoring my shadow, and I really wasn't listening carefully to you.
No, it's all good.
I'm going to be totally honest. Can you do that one more time for me? Okay.
You mentioned in the past that you put random little sprinklings of something in your story, like your character chews gum or drinks tea or has a twitch.
Right.
And then you try to pay that off later, even though you don't know where that's going.
Yeah. Not always do I know where it's going. For instance, let me think here. One of the dramas I did under Drake's Flag for Extraordinary Adventures of G.A. Henty. The mom gives her son, the dad died earlier, but gives her son something her dad wanted, that the dad wanted to give to his son. It's a Bacillard dagger. And so I just kind of put that in there just as a kind of a cool thing. But later on, it plays into the conflict. So I don't always know how it'll pay off, but those little setups will pay off later. Shawshank Redemption is a great example of setups and payoffs, where you see something set up earlier and then it pays off later. Somebody says something about a golf player or about just different things like you do like that. So it's logical. So what you want to do is you want to make it surprising how the hero solves the problem. Surprising, but logical. It makes sense. Okay, it's like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. If you see it coming, that kind of like, it kind of spoils the surprise, right? You want that mystery, yeah? You want to like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see how they're going to do that, but it makes sense because of this over here.
What is now? Here's a curveball question.
Oh boy,
kind of back on topic. What is the most creative use of conflict that you've seen in any form of media?
Yes, great questions. I wish I had the answer for. It's like I've seen some great conflict. I go back to Lord of the Rings. We talked about that. Star Wars, the classics. Raiders of the Lost Ark, and those are just the classic kind of things.
I know that's kind of akin to asking what your favorite story is, but I'm just talking like, which is really funny in and of itself. But I'm just thinking, is there like a form of conflict that is like, you know what? I've never really thought of something like that offering tension and conflict before.
Oh yeah. I just saw Shang-Chi. Is that how I say it?
Shang-Chi. Yeah.
Shang-Chi. Yeah. I think it's like a drink at Starbucks. I think it's Shang latte. So anyway, I always mix it up. I'm sorry. Shang-Chi. Yeah, I got it right. Thank you. Chi. And that was a fascinating conflict between your protagonist and his dad. And you could see why his dad felt like he did. It made sense. And you could see how his dad got there. He's an evil guy, but it's like, oh, that's fascinating. Well, it goes back to Star Wars between Luke and his dad. Yeah. Some dad issues there. So I think it's interesting because I think my favorite movies are my favorite conflicts as well. Because that great conflict makes great movie. Yeah, it's like, how are they going to get out of this? And then they do, and it feels right. It hits right. It just makes sense, and it makes sense. Emotionally, it makes sense logically. So hope that helps.
I grew up with, and the person I'm going to quote here watches/listens to the podcast. So I got to be very careful with this. Okay. This person would often say, and I'm genuinely curious about your response to this, saying violence is not entertainment.
Violence for violence sake, I would agree. Tarantino is a good example.
Yes.
I'm concerned that guy needs some therapy. Seriously.
Yes.
I know he's brilliant. I know everybody says he's brilliant, creative, got it. And I've seen that, but I've seen there's a really dark side to that guy. And it's violence for violence sake. In fact, people are laughing at the violence while somebody is bludgeoning somebody to death. It's like, that's pretty sick. All right. So violence for violence sake, I agree is not entertainment. But sometimes violence is necessary. And I look at the Bible. You've got some great examples of violence in the Bible where it was war is necessary. One time a lady offered a guy a glass of milk and then did something horrible with a tent peg. We'll go into. So anyway, it starts like, here, have some milk and cookies.
I genuinely wanted to know where you were going to go with that story. And it's like, I'll put a glass of milk. Wait, are we talking like rehab? Oh, tent peg. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The guy got a headache he never quite recovered from. But and so the violence there was necessary for the story. So I think that line is there. It's I'm not into violence, but sometimes it's necessary to move the plot forward. And is it entertaining? Good question. Sometimes that edge we talked about, if it goes gratuitous, it's not entertaining. But if it's just enough where it's like we get the idea without being gory, I think sometimes it is necessary. So, yeah. So, any other questions on before we wrap for conflict? I did want to say one more thing to say.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh no, was there anything you had?
I
had a closing remark.
So I want to write a story. I'm just trying to think of practical advice for the aspiring writer here of how to properly craft your conflict in the story. But that's like saying, well, John, how do I tell a story? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a very similar topic. What are some pitfalls?
Okay.
Going into writing conflict.
Great question. So, and we'll wrap it up with this. So going back to those 4 questions, that actually is the essence of story right there. Your story, what we just talked about. What does your hero want more than anything? What's stopping them? How do they overcome it? And really, what's a story about? What do they need inside to overcome the enemy? It's something more than external, that kind of stuff. So that's what. Now, what are the pitfalls? Here are the pitfalls. Let's start with the first one. And I've seen stories like this. There's not a compelling must. It's like, I have to get to a fast food place to get a hamburger. Okay. And that's a very lame example, but I've seen pretty lame examples. It's sort of like it's like, okay, you can start there. And then all of a sudden, an alien spaceship crashes into the fast food restaurant. Now you got something going on. Okay. Now you got a little conflict. Okay. But what's the compelling must that drives the story? If it's not compelling, your story's going to go, okay. Here's another thing. If your antagonist is not strong enough, or is not stronger, has more resources, or is bigger and badder than the hero is, your story is going to run flat. I was talking about a story with just yesterday, and the person telling me the story was, well, it was my son. It was my son, Robert. It was really cool. We're consulting on the story, which is cool. And he came with an antagonist that wasn't quite so smart. The problem with that is, it's like, well, if he's easily overcomable, there's no conflict, there's no story. You need to make him smarter, more talent, more skill, more energy, more resources, something that makes it more impossible for your hero. All right. So that's something where you can go bad. A hero an antagonist that is just kind of wimpy. All right. And the third thing, how do they overcome it? Here's a place where you can fail. All kinds of places you can fail. Okay, here's another place to fail. And don't worry about that. You can always make it better. This is why logical.
Drafts are a thing.
Drafts, yes, drafts are very important. And get credible people, storytellers that know their stuff that can help you with that. I'm gonna move out. My shadow is moving. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. It's
in the dark.
Slowly creeping your direction.
Okay, sorry. The shadow. The third thing is a pitfall, and then we'll leave after this because I want to be conscious of we're doing this for you guys, and we don't ever want to bore you. We want to we want to inspire you and that kind of stuff. So the third thing is a conflict resolved that is a cheat. It's like it came out of nowhere. If your hero solves the problem in a way that does not make sense, was not set up earlier, comes out of nowhere, it's very dissatisfying. And so those 3 ways you can really mess up a story. How about that?
Yeah,
we have a podcast, how to mess up a story really bad.
I mean, you know what? That would actually be a really interesting topic, is to go into a story and just talk about the pitfalls of storytelling, like some of the greater ones and some of the more minor ones. Just like it would be a great episode to kind of do on the other side of, all right, here's some really bad writing advice.
Okay. Well, okay. And if you want to do some homework ahead of time of the show, I can already feel the show coming on. If you get a copy, it's done way back. It's called The White Stallion. There's a Black Stallion, which we know of. Beautiful film, Francis Ford Coppola. Just beautiful, beautiful film. And a competing studio said, "Hey, let's make The White Stallion." And
genius.
Genius.
Absolutely
they had Mickey Rooney.
Genius.
that Mickey Rooney in it, which he's a great actor, but is this a horrible movie? And looking in that movie, we might talk about that in the future. Like, why was it so bad? I mean, really bad. Like I think somebody actually conspired, like maybe the editor had a problem with the producer or whatever, and he actually edited it. So revenge. I think it was called revenge editing. There's that one. A recent one, and I hope I don't hurt anybody's feelings on this one. Recently saw. Well, I shouldn't. I'm
looking.
Okay,
up.
I'll be bold. Another one I saw recently was called The Green Knight, which started. It had some a good possibility there, but there's parts of us like, no, you what? So White Stallion, Green Knight. There you go.
I've actually heard some really good things, and I do want to see Green Knight. So
there's some good parts of it. I'm not going to spoil it. And maybe it's just me. Could be just me. But it's like, what did really? So anyway, one of my favorite scenes is when he gets to the I guess he was an antagonist. And it's like a tree-like character, and he just sits there and watches the tree for all day long, and it feels like you're watching it all day long, and then all night long he's watching the tree, and then the tree wakes up, and it's but that was fascinating.
It sounds like a patient story.
Anyway,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think we're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Okay.
Yeah. All right. No, we're not done. I'll fight you for it.
Okay.
There's
conflict. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, hope you enjoy this, and feel free, ask us questions, send us whatever, give us feedback. We like feedback, good, bad, ugly, whatever. Take it easy in the ugly. But anyway, we love to have feedback. So keep sending those notes. We appreciate them, and we are here to help you tell great stories, and that's how we change the world. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of StoryChat. If you want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions for John or feedback on the show, please email us at storychatwithjohn@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.